I think they might have some accountability where now it's just everyone's free to their full.
I don't think we have enough shame. We need to bring back shame.
People
are not.
Somebody said that. No, Kevin Samuel said that. He said we don't have enough shame in our community.
We don't. Nah. We need to bring back shame, because the things that I was just saying, like, even to romanticize the idea of having a dysfunctional household. People have gotten so okay with everybody's being a baby mama. Welcome to the baby mothers club, to the point where it's a societal norm, and they made themselves okay with it to the point where they've just completely coerced the idea to say, I don't want to get married. Yeah. And it makes absolutely no sense as to why they don't want to get married, but they want to build a whole family with somebody and multiple people. Like, you have a household that has about 4 different men that's supposed to be in it, but you don't want to commit. And then you want to take marriage advice or relationship advice from your best friend or another co-worker who also has a household from 3 different men. And, you know, it's just plain ignorance to me. And I'll just say it. That's what it is.
I don't think it's ignorant. I think it's fiscally responsible to play it in that particular manner. If you have kids with multiple different fathers, you're getting child support from those individuals. You also get support from the government. From a fiscal perspective, that's the best way to maximize the amount of money that you make on a monthly basis. I don't agree with it at all. I'm just saying the way that the government has made it, there's no way to fail anymore. If you get to the point to where you have kids, you're going to be supported by either Section 8 housing, EBT. There's a myriad of different social programs.
And that's the problem. People feel like financially keeping children afloat is the end all being all to actually having a stable household. And finances only get you so far. Because
I agree with that.
The end all be all to parenting.
Yeah, but if you're somebody with low skill set, coming straight out of high school, not going to college and things of this nature, that's the easiest way in order to bring yourself up.
That's also not that's not the reality anymore, because it's more Black women who are higher educated and have more degrees than almost everybody else. So, and with that being said, it's still Black women who are the matriarch of the community, but majority of the households are single mothers, Black women, higher educated, and don't qualify for government assistance in that range.
I don't agree with that.
The percentage of those that it won't measure up in the next 5 to 7 years.
The majority of the women in the Black community having kids are between the ages of 18 and 29, and they're also part of the same demographic that stopped after high school. The majority of well-educated African-American women, in terms of having kids, that rate is going down, and it's been going down since like 1996. So you have the most educated people in our community having less kids. So more or less what we're doing is making it to where our community is going to get dumber and dumber and dumber over time, because we have
like that movie Idiocracy.
Exactly, but we're speeding it up because now we're subsidizing the ignorance in the African-American community, and it's going to keep at that same pace, because once again, the rate of marriage in African-American communities of high educated people is going down as well. So the only people having kids in our community are the ignorant people. If that keeps up, then the kids are going to be ignorant, which means the generation after that's going to be ignorant, and it's just going to matriculate and become more and more as we go along. We have to have a change in mindset.
The ignorant premise is we got kids still having kids, and these kids feel as if the only way to actually make it parenting is to accumulate a lot of money. And that's it. There is no shame. There is no foundation. There are no principles. There are no morals. There are no values. And that is the issue.
Yeah, the generation right before, well, if we're talking about Gen X, which was I think 1980, their kids should be having kids now. That was more or less the onset of the single mother epidemic. We can go all the way back to the 60s and talk about how Planned Parenthood started it, but more or less the single mother epidemic started in the 80s. So what you're seeing now is their kids having kids at this point. So you're seeing the effects of the single parenthood. And what I'm saying is that effect is going to get worse as we have more instances of single parents. I don't think it's going to get better at the rate that we're going.
I don't either. I honestly don't either. And that's why I said, I think we're saying the same thing. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that there is no leverage to this. Like, it's no way to correct it. It's not. And the sad fact of the matter is, like I said, you got women and men. Well, men are not even taking advice from, their friends and things like that. You guys tend to be more reserved in my experience as far as your partner's business or whatever the case may be. But women, they're very much so active in their friends' business and giving advice, and it's no structure, it's no dynamic of that. So I feel like we have mentally okayed ourselves to say, oh yeah, let me have 4 or 5 baby daddies so I can get the come up, and making yourself okay with that. But the whole time, children are getting treated differently, and children are not, receiving the same type of gratification from one parent to the next. You may have 3 kids in the household, and one of them are getting more attention than the other. One father could be very much so absent, one father could be active. And because it's a financial gain, nobody sees a problem with it. She's fine. She's a single mother. We're going to give her kudos, and we're going to praise her regardless, because she's the parent that chose to be in the household and stay, as if them having a relationship with each other wasn't just as important as them making a child together.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But at this point, there's no way to turn it back.
No, we can't alleviate that.
Yeah. We don't have any organization that's championing a nuclear household at the moment. The most prominent African-American movement is what, BLM at the moment? They're trying to get rid of the nuclear family, more or less. That was on their front page from what I've seen.
Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of their mission statement.
Exactly. What they were trying to do is get more government assistance in order to help single motherhood. They were trying to perpetuate that. We don't have any.
Too, it's on the backhand, it encourages LGBTQs. What a lot of people don't realize, it encourages them to parent.
Jesus Christ, dude. I'm sorry. I was raised Christian, so I don't really 100% hop on the train, but I know that's okay. Not politically correct.
I understand. I think we gotta.
Nah, I can't. Nah, I've already had to take way too many sensitivity trainings. I've already had to go to way too many parades. I got to stay in their pocket. You know what I'm saying at this point?
No, but what I mean is the fact that you have people trying to omit the nuclear family, and especially with being pushed by BLM, who's actively been stealing from the Black community and profits and things of that nature. It's a fraud situation. But I say that to say the LGBT community benefits off of that. Yeah. Because the LGBTQ community, regardless of how you like to flip it, even if a woman came into her relationship with the child that's biologically hers, or a man came into a relationship with the child that biologically his, it is still not a nuclear family dynamic regardless. Even if they adopt, it's not a nuclear family sense, so they benefit from the privilege of that nature as well.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for years. Race baiting has been a profitable enterprise
for years.
Yeah, you can go back to Reverend Al Sharpton. He's been doing this since early 80s.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That's why a lot of people don't like him.
Yeah. So at this point, I think they're just perpetuating systematic racism just to get money from the government. I don't think there's systematic racism at this point anymore. Affirmative action has been out since the 60s. I understand where you're coming from.
I don't necessarily think that I don't think that we're as oppressed as we make ourselves seem either.
We're nowhere near. We're a protected group at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I know Denzel sees me talking about this. I literally just, I don't know if you want to bring up my tweet from yesterday, but it was a little vulgar.
But that's the point. That's the point right now. That's even the issue. They've already done the work. You don't got to do the work no more. We'll do the work ourselves. And that's what's happening. The work has been done itself. We're doing the work ourselves, so they don't have to oppress us. There's so many laws that give us money and protect us and do all these other things that people don't even know exist.
Exactly.
Because it's like the phrase goes, put it in the book and you hide it from a nigga, or however it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At this point,
if you don't want a nigga to read something, put it in the book. That's how I go.
Yeah. At this point, though, the systematic racism is against white males. At this point, the last 10 government assistance programs have gone to either women or minorities. I think that they're just going to keep perpetuating this for years to come, for financial gain and just for political gain.
Yeah, it's a lot of things being discussed. Like I was, and I mean, I'm gonna throw it out there, and I tend to be controversial. But even with the whole Megan and Tory situation, when she started to say protect Black women, it didn't come up with that propaganda until people started to doubt the integrity of her side of the story. And I was like, you know, when you sit back and you think about it, look at the element, look at the environment and the nature of what's going on for why she would say that. Here we are protesting not only George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor. That was around the time that Breonna Taylor was getting ready to have, you know, her boyfriend was going back and forth in the media around the same time that, you know, her and Tory came up shot and that situation. So you can see it. You can see it even when you talk about these TV shows. It was literally both Basketball Wives, because I do watch the show, as well as what was it called? It was another show. I don't know if it was Love and Hip Hop, or I don't know if it was I don't think it was Real Housewives of Atlanta, but both of them were discussing colorism. And I'm like, it's just so happens to be a coincidence. All of this is happening at the same time. And it's been years prior. These things have never been discussed, but things have been said. It's been years prior that this stuff is recorded, but all of a sudden, as of now, everybody wants to address it as if it's some type of heightened sense of urgency to bring awareness. You're not bringing awareness, you're being a nuisance.
Facts. Like, I was speaking to my father the other day. He said that the country wasn't racist until Obama got in office, right? He was saying that race relations had gotten better over time. He was born in the 60s. He saw actual racism. He grew up in Georgia. He saw actual racism through the 70s and 80s. Comparing what we're going through now to that is no comparison. That's like AOC saying that she went to war because she was in a different building during January 6th riots compared to somebody that went to the actual Vietnam War. We're trying to corroborate a story that's not really occurring at the moment. It's not.
And not to say that racism don't exist, because y'all, I'm from the country, so I've seen it firsthand. I understand. But overall, as a group dynamic, is the country racist? Absolutely. But are there things that are happening that are making up this extra realm for oppression to create a divide? Yes. And it started just as early as, I would say, it started about 2018 is when I started to notice. It's just kind of like a trend now.
It was
it's
before
very
that.
much so a trend.
It was when Obama got in. And this is why I didn't want Obama as president. And I'll say, I've never said it on camera, but I'll say this. I knew Obama being on as president was just going to make the Black community as complacent as it was. It was completely complacent the 8 years he was in. I enjoyed Trump in office for the simple fact is, people just saw him as a racist. They just saw him as this. They saw him as all these horrible things. Whether he is or not, I don't care one way or another. He's 70. Expectation versus reality. I think anybody over a certain age is going to have a level of prejudice or whatsoever. But when he became in office, what did people start doing? People started voting again for their local communities, started working on themselves. They started doing all these things they should have been doing the entire time Obama was in office. And what's going to happen is the same thing while Biden's in office. It's going to be a level of complacency that always comes when Democrats are in office, and it's just going to keep us in the same cycle. We are not as complacent when Republicans in office because we already have a preconception that Republicans are racist and they all these other things. And where that may be true or false, it doesn't matter. We haven't even been Democrats for that long. It's been since the 60s when Kennedy was elected. And people don't even realize that. We were Republicans. We had our own.
The first Black, it started as Republicans.
That's what I'm saying. We were
Democrats for the Klan, bro.
That's what I'm saying. We had our own communities. We had our own everything. So being Democratic made no sense because it was the government, and they weren't just the government. They were supporting their own people, and they knew they weren't going to support us. While Republicans just supported small business, large business, etc., and so forth. They supported the growth of the country. So, where to be honest, both sides might have been racist, but at least I'd rather take the racist who's gonna at least give me a chance versus the racist who's not trying to give me a chance at all. That's the same thing I think about when with the whole Biden and Trump thing. Yeah, Biden and Trump are close to the same age. If y'all think Biden's not just as racist as Trump or pretty close, y'all are crazy.
I will never say that. I tend to believe, me personally, I tend to believe the mass majority of white people over the age of 55 is racist. That's my personal perception. That's me. I don't.
I won't say
me.
racist, but at least have a certain level of prejudice, and it's not even their fault. It's just the environment.
I said exactly how I meant it. A certain mass percentage of white people over the age of 55 in today's time, to me, by personal experience, is racist.
I wouldn't go that far.
And I'm not gonna, and like I said, I'm not gonna say it's their fault, but they're 70. Both of them are 70. So there's nothing in my mind you can maybe 55 on, but like maybe 60. But when you get to 65 on up, you probably are racist to me, or prejudice, whatever you want to call it. Like you have to convince me that you're not before you convince me that you are. So to me, when people thought they were getting anything different out of either one, is so bizarre to me. It still doesn't make sense to me. But at least if I would have looked at history and said, hey, who is giving me the most benefit out of this situation? Because you're not gonna get no benefit out of Biden. Biden has already proved that we're not gonna get much benefit out of it. He ain't even been in a year.
What are you talking about? He's on his fourth stimulus package.
He's on his what?
He's going on his fourth stimulus package, $6 trillion apparently.
What does that do?
It's not gonna benefit any regular individual American though. It's having some.
I didn't say it was going to benefit. He said we didn't get anything out of it. We're getting debt for the next 50 years, bro. He's spending our GDP up to 50 years out at this point. We're screwed beyond belief. We're not going to be able to retire. We're not going to have any Social Security by the time.
But they've been saying that was coming since Obama was in office, that Social Security was probably going to go away.
Yeah, I understand that. But our deficit was nowhere near what it is now. We've increased the money supply by almost 50% since the whole COVID situation. But I digress. I'm sorry. I
you're fine. I think in so many words, to be honest, we all share very similar, if not identical views. If they're not identical, they're extremely similar in the manner.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a Republican, so I'm out there.
All right, y'all. Gonna have to call it quits for tonight because my laptop's almost dead at 36%, and I need to figure out where these Zoom videos are pretty much going because they're not making much sense at this point, and they're in the cloud. But I don't understand it. I don't have enough space to put it on my laptop anymore, so I'm putting it in the cloud for with 2 terabytes, but I can't find the damn thing that's in the damn cloud. So Apple, if you're watching this or gonna be watching this or somehow find out, please help me.
Silly goose, they're always watching.
Yeah, I can get you a hard drive, bro.
I got a hard drive, but it's just that's what the cloud is for. I pay $10.99 for the cloud, for everything to be in the cloud.
I'm just saying, if you can't upload, then there's no point in having it. It's just wasting money.
You're right. But I uploading isn't the issue. It's not from the laptop to the cloud. It's from the cloud to the YouTube, and YouTube is really the issue.
I got you.
All right. I'll holler at y'all later. Appreciate you all for coming tonight.
Yeah, I just want Jarvis to come back, man.
We'll probably have 2 guests next week. 1 probably for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Paris, you probably
thanks for having us.
The topic's pretty much about you next week.
Yeah, we're going on your Twitter. We're going ham. I'm taking notes. I already got my notebook over here.
Are you scaling my Twitter for him?
I don't have a Twitter at all. I don't even know how to use it.
You can still pull it.
To the channel and everything, man.
I tried to post I don't know, YouTube been acting up. Every time I try to upload a video, sometimes it says it can't be processed or some other stuff, so I gotta look that up. But let's get into it. Welcome back, folks, to another week of Word of Mouth, talking mental health, relationships, careers, etc., etc. Y'all know the deal. Like and subscribe to the channel. Link down below to all our social media stuff, sisters, and whatnot. Again, Paris has joined us for the 2nd week in a row, unlike some of our other colleagues who just got all these excuses why they can't come. Also, we got a couple other people who might be joining us later, so we'll just see about that. So this week we're discussing how to put it. The topic is women wanting men to be men when it's convenient for them. So I'm gonna play a video from DJ Vlad TV. All copyrights and rights go to him and whatnot. Hopefully he doesn't try to get it taken down and whatnot. But I'm gonna play the video. It's only about 23 minutes. Excuse me. Let me share my screen and then we'll get into this. Screen share. YouTube. Share.
Then after that, right around that time, you got married.
Yeah.
To Christopher 6ix9ine Harvest.
I did.
And I guess you said you got married because everyone else was doing it.
I did. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, yeah. Everyone was having their Cinderella day, and I just wanted one to be very honest with you. Why the marriage didn't last a long time is because I didn't take the time to get to know him. That I just really wanted. I felt peer pressure, and I had my Cinderella day. My sister, my brother, my niece. I got married on this beautiful staircase. Paparazzi. Somebody from paparazzi fell out of a tree trying to get pictures for it. I mean, it was beautiful. It was an InStyle magazine. I had my Cinderella day, but I should have honestly taken the time to get to know him a little bit better. I now to this day, with relationships, make sure that I take a little bit more time before I go so publicly with a relationship. It was a huge lesson for me. I mean, I was only married for two and a half at most. I think it was 3 years. And, I have no ill will against him. I just didn't know him. And so that's why the relationship didn't last.
Well, what was the final straw? Because you guys got divorced in 2002.
Yes. The final straw for me was, at the time he was a singer, and his group that he was in, they were supposed to have been signed with Death Row Records, yet another connection with Tupac and Death Row. And when Tupac got killed and everything kind of fell apart with Death Row Records, he didn't go out and then try to pursue things with the same drive that I had for my career. And, a woman doesn't like paying all the bills all the time. And I can only ask for help so many times before I had to come to the conclusion that I didn't want to be the breadwinner in this family. My mother didn't raise me to take care of a man. And that was the deciding factor.
So you were a sugar mama, basically.
I'm sorry?
You were a sugar mama?
Gonna stop that. So that's part of it, and we're gonna get into the second half of this. This one was like the wild part of why it's not just women wanting the wedding, but not necessarily wanting to be married. That's why we didn't go with that theme. We're going with the other thing. If we're not married, it's my child, and I don't have to give my child that I carried for 9 months the last name of a man who ain't my husband. He's just a father, and there's no longer ties to him. Even if we're married, I don't need to give my kids my husband's last name. It's 2021. So I'm gonna start with you this week, D-Best. What are your thoughts on that?
The Vivica A. Fox or the baby thing?
The whole synopsis of pretty much, like I said, wanting men to be men when it's convenient for them. She was cool with, even with Vivica Fox as an example, not to say she's a bad woman, she was okay with him being there to be the husband, being at the wedding, doing this and that. And not to say he was right in the sense of not having the same drive or motivation for a career, and that's only a perspective. But as soon as things kind of got hard, she didn't want to be bothered anymore.
I don't know. From what she was saying, it seemed like they weren't equally yoked. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like they didn't marry each other for the reasons, they might have been married for superficial reasons, not for, it's more like, their love was more like I love pizza, I love a burger, I love a car, or something like that. It was superficial. The love was a feeling, not just a decision being made. So that when the going got tough, that happened. On the other hand, you're marrying somebody, I don't know, it seemed like she didn't know who he was. Like, it seemed like you would, during the courting phase of the relationship, you would ask things like, all right, like, look, this, worst case scenario, if this happens, what are we gonna do? Because that happened, he didn't seem like he wanted to do anything, and then you're looking surprised, all Pikachu face, like, what? It's like, well, that's who he was. That's who you married. You didn't know this? You didn't know he didn't have this kind of drive? I mean, like, what? But I mean, that also comes to communication. It seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of communication. But as for what she did, like, I don't know. Like, all I can say to that is, like, you're surprised. Why are you surprised? You married this guy. You must have known this guy, right? Doesn't seem like she really knew who he was, or didn't know he was capable of, or not capable of. As for the baby situation, that seemed like very messy. I mean, on one hand, it's like, well, what kind of role did the father have besides, helping create the child? And I'm not saying that every child being made was voluntary and stuff, but we'll just, I don't know. I think it's situational. Like, you're not married, so I guess, like, you guys aren't married, so I guess she doesn't have to name the child after. I'm sorry, what?
And after they're married, she doesn't necessarily have to give the child the last name.
Oh, well, that's why you. No, what? No, that's terrible. Like, you guys are married. That's a commitment being made. That's a child that's being that's his child too, and you're marrying him. Like, you're not dropping your name, but taking that maiden name, and you're taking his last name. Like, seems kind of disrespectful.
The child is his before they got married. Like, put it like this: if we go to court and she's asking for child support and they do a DNA test, the child don't stop being his because she doesn't want to get the last name. You get what I'm saying?
No, it seemed like yeah, I get that. It seemed like more like just a pride thing. It's like, well, I don't want to have his last name because of what? It's like, why not? It seemed kind of disrespectful, but that's just my opinion.
Paris?
It's a few things here that's wrong with everything that was stated. So first and foremost, one of the things that stuck out to me with Vivica Fox was she said, my mother didn't raise me to take care of a man. No mention of her father. So there's no ground for her knowing what she would have to potentially seek out for that foundation of a man, which is why her deciding to leave him when he wasn't able to financially keep up with her potentially was an issue. Like, it's a difference in that region, because if her mother taught her that, then, where was her father to give her that type of guidance to say, okay, well, these are the things that you would seek out in a partner, because finances is something that change. And that's what a lot of people don't accept in relationships. Yes, you are the breadwinner now, but we can look at Vivica A. Fox, and she hasn't played in a role in several years, although she has residuals, although she probably has invested well, but she is not a current A-list celebrity. At best, maybe C, at best. And I'm gonna give it to her because of the fact that we know she is prominent in the Black community as far as certain secondhand roles that she's taken, as well as her main character roles. But when it came down to it, she said herself, accountability, a lot of women don't have. She wasn't ready for the marriage. She wanted the wedding. So to piggyback off of what Derek said, he stated that they probably weren't equally yoked. But here's the thing about getting married. The men choose. And something that I was looking at when they were talking about marriage on Twitter, I actually saw a video, and they basically said, if you choose to marry a woman and it doesn't work, it's always your fault. And he stated to say that, I see you, Fahim, but he stated to say that because you asked her, you chose your wife. So if she was a bitch before you got married, either you knew that already or you eventually brought it out of her. So the thing about that is like, I can see he probably potentially, what he didn't have the drive that she needed, but he wanted to get married, and she just didn't have the stability or the foundation set to know what a successful marriage looked like, because she was focused on just having the celebration, not the husband. That's one thing. Number two, as far as that tweet, my timeline went into flames because I quoted it. I had my own rant about the tweet, and there's still tweets circulating about that tweet. I had about 3 tweets go viral from that tweet. First and foremost, dysfunction. Why are we glorifying having children in a baby mama, baby daddy hypothetical situation? That is terrible. Where have we gotten to that point where you're able to have a discourse about you already having a child with somebody in a dysfunctional environment? That is not something I'm okay with, and that is not something I agree with. Also, we've all known for years, as far as lineage is concerned, lineage and legacy is always connected to the father of some sort, always. So I feel like women get to bond with their children as far as being impregnated and things like that in a different way than men do. Although you have other resources and ways that you connect to nurturing your own child, the name represents who they belong to. Who do we need to give this child to? Where can we locate them? Not even just the child, the wife. It's very common for women to keep their husband's last name even after divorces, because the connections that are made upon his community and his family and things like that, like you're merging families. That's what that is. I just feel like it's extremely disrespectful. I feel like it's a real disregard to the parenting of the father, like the paternal parent. It's a disregard to them, because at best, if she does have a man who wants to be an active father, even if he chose not to be with her, their relationship will always function in dysfunction, because she made emphasis about it's only her child. So she already chose to want to parent a certain way. It causes a lot of conflict and confusion, because even if the father, the absent parent, or the other parent, even if he's not absent, even if he tried to be an active parent, she will always be interjecting and overstepping her boundaries to insert where he should and should not do certain things on how he wants to parent for a child. And I know you just say it's a name, but it was more to it than what she stated. Even if she decided to marry, it was, if you feel so hell-bent on disregarding a man behind his name, you're not going to be submissive. You're not going to be understanding. You don't know how to compromise, and you're not willing to see things in a traditional value. So why would he marry you? Marriage is a tradition. If you're going to break tradition, why would we entertain it? So that's where I stand on both points.
Fahim?
Yeah, this week I kind of want to play the devil's advocate. One, I agree with most of the points that have been said, but unfortunately, I had to do some research into this Vivica A situation because I didn't really understand it too much. But her marriage coincided with her fling with 50 Cent. So she was more or less comparing, what's his name, Christopher Harvest, somebody who was out of work due to the death row falling out, to somebody that was literally the hottest artist in all of the genres. Mm-hmm. This was during Get Rich or Die Trying. This is when he was topping the charts. This is when you were comparing somebody making millions upon millions of dollars to somebody who was making nothing. There was no way her husband was going to hold up in a situation such as that. But once again, I agree with Derek with that. They didn't have an equal standing. And she stated from the beginning they didn't have an equal standing. She said that because her friends were getting married, she wanted to get married. Mm-hmm. So she was more or less finding the first person that she could, that had some type of status that she can get married to, so she can have the wedding instead of the marriage. So it was already starting off on unequal footing, a ground that wasn't solid. So that wasn't going to last regardless. The second point though, in terms of the taking the kid's name, I looked into it a little bit and I re-looked into it just now. The majority of kids born in America, if we're talking about African American or minorities in general, are born out of wedlock. So if we're looking at the rise in statistics in terms of the amount of kids born out of wedlock, it would make more and more sense not to name these kids after the father, because if this increases at the same rate, same velocity, it will get to a point to where the vast majority of all kids across all races will be born without the father being in the life in terms of a marriage between two different people. So before, the entirety of the last name was due to property rights, and also due to when the individual died, his all of his accumulated wealth would go to his kids, and that was the reason the last name was taken. In addition, most of the men, they carried on the legacy of their family. That's why the firstborn son had so many rights within families back in the day, and this more or less is carried on to modern day. So, playing devil's advocate, the last name thing is kind of antiquated in that particular perspective. One, because we're no longer having the same amount of marriages these days. We no longer have the same amount of couples rearing children. So I don't see a reason why a woman, if she's having a kid out of wedlock, why she would name it after the father. If he dies, all of his assets is going to that child. That doesn't make too much sense to me. The secondary point that was made in that post that you had was that if they're married, she's not required to do that. Now, I don't agree with that at all. If you're married, generally you're taking the last name, but we're seeing that also go away. We're seeing women of high status keeping their last name, or you see the alternative where people are hyphenating, keeping both their last name and the husband's last name. So if we're looking at how the social norm is changing, it's going to get to the point to where the man's name carries no weight whatsoever. So even though I disagree with it, even though I was raised differently, the trajectory of our community, of our ethics, of our standards are changing. So I have to be cognizant of the fact that maybe in 10 years, we're going to be taking a wife's last name in 10 years, just because of how the dynamic is changing. I think it's changing more so in the fact that if you look at it, more women are getting higher education than men, especially in the African-American community. It's going to get to the point where they're the primary breadwinner. So it will make the most sense in my eyes that because of the primary breadwinner, because they are the primary caregiver, that we should take their last name if, of course, the trajectory keeps as it is. Now, I don't agree with that whatsoever, but I can see somebody making the case for the fact that we should start naming the kids after the wife if she's taken all of the primary roles, primary caregiver, primary breadwinner, things of that nature. So I hate to say it, but I can agree with her point of view if I'm taking it from that particular perspective.
Well, okay, so we'll use the same young lady. I'm gonna play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate. We'll use the same.
Crisscross.
If she was marrying LeBron James, you think she would take that child would have whose last name?
That's different than the point I was making. I was making a point that if the woman is the primary caregiver, if she's the primary breadwinner, the kid should take that last name. If she's marrying LeBron, somebody who's making,
she's not marrying.
She's not married.
She's having a hypothetical baby daddy.
Yeah.
I see. I didn't hear that part. Excuse me.
It's a hypothetical to say when I do have a child, which is the reason why I made the comment and said it's already a inbred toxic dysfunction. To say we're already making hypotheticals about having children out of wedlock. We already are conditioning ourselves to think in that nature, to say, well, I mean, I know it's our reality, it's very prominent, but the fact of the matter is it's so much of our reality, we're comfortable, we're complacent. We already have accepted it as our fate.
Yeah, 32% actually. But in that case, naming a child after LeBron would increase the status of both her and the child. So that would make all the sense in the world. But if you have a deadbeat individual out here, there's no point. You don't. That's not what she
was saying.
But what?
Yeah, I'm talking about what the point that Denzel was making.
We're not even going to use a deadbeat. Let's use Derek. We use this right now.
I don't like him though. So.
Hey, what's wrong with me? All right, I have a job.
Engineer.
Pay my bills.
You know what I'm saying? He's a regular engineer. He makes pretty decent money. He just happens to have a kid out of wedlock. You think, as an engineer, we could say on average, engineers make about 50 to 70,000. We're just gonna say that's on average. It's probably completely off. I don't feel like looking it up, but they probably make way more. But I'm just gonna give that synopsis. So, I'm just gonna look at her. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by a cover, but that's exactly what I'm about to do.
facts.
Oh, her eyes are a little lazy, but I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Looking
people,
at
people are up.
I'll send it to you guys. It's on
Mm-hmm.
my phone. I'll send it to you guys. Or like you don't have a full picture of her, but I will send you what I have.
Talking about this Keisha BG person?
Exactly. So, do you really think, even with him making just $70,000, we'll put her on the high ball, that she's not going to put him on child support if they don't live together?
Yeah, child support has nothing to do with the last name.
Yes, it does, because that makes him a primary breadwinner in her household. Because child support doesn't not only pay for it's supposed to only pay for the children, but it also pays for the bills in that house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying she doesn't have to name the child after Derek in order to get child support.
And this is the point I was saying from the jump. You can't pick and choose when you want a man to be a man. You want him to pay bills in your house, but now his child can't have your last name.
How is he being a man in that situation? If he's not part of the child rearing, if he's not in the household, then how is he being a man in that situation?
He's still providing for his child.
So does the government. Do you name it after Biden? If she's getting welfare to that extent, if she's getting Section 8 housing to that extent, she's getting more money. She's getting fiscally supported more by the government than the man. So should the man be the government now? Yeah, I saw the tweet. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. So I definitely did make the point that Denzel made. I tweeted it. And I said, had, it been with the NBA player or whatever the case may be, she definitely would have named it out there, him. Not even question it. And it had nothing to do with, her hierarchy. More so to do with status and money. Not hers, but status and money. So same thing with Derek. Once again, we're gonna remove child support out the situation. Mm-hmm. If you have a prominent person in the community, or he has some type of stature, whatever the case may be, his name in question won't even be a discussion because she's going to want the attachment. Period. Bottom line. So the thing about it is,
if we get PhDs, you use our last names. When we get our PhDs, you use our last names. You think she would take our last names? What we have to have.
It won't be a question.
That's what I'm saying. We have to have we're gonna have to have articles in our names, journals, books, all that. Regardless of what type of PhD you got, is pretty much known you probably gonna make six figures.
All right. So let me ask you this question: for a woman that's having kids out of wedlock, would that matter? The status that she's getting from somebody that's educated to that degree with articles, that's not going to carry any type of clout within the circles that she's probably dealing with. So
absolutely, it will. Absolutely, and I'll tell you how.
Go ahead.
Look at Nick Cannon. Look at Future. Look at NBA YoungBoy. Even though they don't necessarily have book smarts or anything like that, it's a certain repertoire. One of Future's baby mamas, she has her own businesses and she does her own thing. She was having her own status. She does her own thing. She doesn't have as much money as him, but she was pretty well off. Off to the point where she could afford herself to be around his social circle.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But you're talking about people that have instant recognizability. If they go to an airport, people will ask them for autographs. If I go to an airport, regardless of how many journal articles I have, regardless of how many conferences I've been to, there's going to be very few people that recognize me, one, and very few people that will ask for even less that will ask for an autograph and things of that nature.
You're correct. In a celebrity, in a whole
and that's my whole point.
But what I'm saying is, as a woman, women are very adaptable creatures. You think she wouldn't adapt to the circles that you hang around or who you be around? Because even if you're writing these articles and whatnot,
you're exposing her to your lifestyle.
Exactly. Even in the sections you live or you reside in, you're a celebrity in that regard. Like,
so which part are we talking about though? Are we talking about the wedlock portion of it or the marriage portion of it right now?
The wedlock, having the baby out of wedlock.
So you're a baby's daddy in that particular case. So why would
absolutely, regardless of what your status is, you are a baby's daddy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm saying, why would she continue to be in your circle if you're only playing the role as a baby daddy? Why would she interact with people in your circle?
Because there's an advantage to that. Even if it's not always just a fiscal advantage, there's still a networking advantage. It's still maybe, just maybe she's not sleeping with you anymore, but she sees that other celebrity engineering in your circle or whoever it is she can sleep with and take advantage of. Maybe there's somebody who sees a project or something you're working on that's a big name celebrity and tries to come on. Mental health is like the hugest thing right now. I've already researched multiple times to make sure I'll be the first African American man with a PhD in art therapy. That may go under the radar for a while, but that's not going to go on the radar forever.
No.
Okay.
In the next 3 to 5 years, it's definitely gonna hit because mental health is constantly getting highlighted right now.
As a black man in mental health, that's just gonna highlight even more. She may just be in your good graces just so she can get to where else she want to go and hang around your circle. But if she tries to even pull that, let's be honest, in the circles we have to be, if she tries to pull the, hey, I don't want my child to have his last name, and she tries to step to another man like that or do that, that man not gonna deal with her. You know why? Because she's already proven that she's gonna be trouble, or she's dysfunctional, or she's a problem, or that man may ask the father of that child, like, hey, how is she as a person? What is this? What is that? And that can make or break her whole life.
And here's another thing too. I know you mentioned about the child support and things like that, because Denzel brought it up. In the event that she's saying this is her child and her child only, I don't even know if you were able to see it, but she said something in regards to what is basically, she was saying even DNA doesn't matter. That's what she said. It's my child. Even DNA doesn't matter. So let's just say this is the decision that she makes. You guys get pregnant and she chose to keep the child, and you're like, okay, that's fine. That's my child. How are we going to handle this? And she goes, no, that's not my child. That's not your child. I don't know any man. Same thing with Bow Wow. It came up. I'm going to mention it, but I don't know too many men who are going to go out of their way to, be there for a person going through that by themselves, who are avidly saying, leave me alone, don't bother me. And, even as far as signing a birth certificate, if she puts that child in her name and she goes to say, well, this is my child only, I don't want you here, et cetera, you don't get the opportunity to sign the birth certificate. You don't get the opportunity to have a DNA test. I mean, at that point, now she's made it to where he doesn't want to take care of his child. He's a deadbeat, et cetera. So she's still going to have to go through the process of paperwork to prove legibility to say you are the child's father, and with the repertoire and things like that, it's like, you're making this more harder than it has to be. Off of a name, you're being difficult off of a name, but it wasn't just the name, like I said, for me, because the name, like you said, Fahim, I completely agree. Sometimes it can be a hit and miss thing, me and outside the household, especially if you're not an active parent, I don't feel like you actually deserve the last name. But for her to say, oh, this is just my child, and be specific in that, that's where I have the most issue. I don't have an issue with the name. You can keep your name.
So, I agree with you. Let me put that out. I'm just saying, from the perspective of somebody who looks through laws such as these, when a woman gets pregnant in America, for instance, the dude has absolutely no control over what she does with that child.
Absolutely not.
So in that particular case, you could make the argument that that child is hers and hers alone. If she has the power to terminate the birth, if she has the power to go all the way through to conception, if she has the power to keep you completely out of the life and have 100% parent, I forgot what it's called. But in any case, she has all of these powers under the law to take care of that kid and conceive that kid. Man has no input in that particular case. So wouldn't that baby be under those circumstances 100% hers? If she has all
up until she actually has the child, and up until something happens to where she is not in a position, if she happens to die or go to jail, then they're going to come looking for you, whether that child got your last name or not, because you're next of kin.
Yeah, under those circumstances. But let's
extreme or not, that's still the principle. So she can say it's her child all day long, and so can the state say, oh yeah, this is her child.
When they go to
but if she comes looking for assistance from you, financial assistance from you, and if she comes to say, well, I'm disabled, I can't take care of it, or I got tied up in the law, they're gonna take the baby for whatever reason, or she passes, the state is also gonna come looking for you.
Yeah. Wouldn't the child first go to her next of kin first, and then the state? And
the child goes to their next of kin.
It goes to the father first, not her next of kin.
It don't go to nobody else but the that child next of kin. Unless it's in documentation for something different. And I don't know a state that does it differently. Not a single state that does it differently. There may be one.
I'd have to look into it. I'm not 100% familiar with that particular portion of it.
And then
I was more so talking from her perspective. As I said, I agree with you. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate because I know a lot of people think along those lines. If I'm having a child, if I have all of the say in the child's life, then that child is 100% mine. I've seen a lot of people make those type of arguments on social media.
I do too, and I see an issue when they make that argument because it's all fine and dandy until you feel the need to want to be accommodated for your troubles. You feel the need to complain about not getting a break. You feel the need to say, oh, well, yeah, this light bill due and he don't do nothing. He don't help. And it's like you have to be accountable for the role that you play in that. So you have to be careful about the things that you say in the bed that you make, because while you thinking you one-upping, the child really, losing out in the end. Not only is the child losing out, you sat there and you made this bed for everybody to lie in, and you remove one of the parties that was your main beneficial part of the situation. So I don't agree with it. I'm not going to agree with it. I'm not going to play devil's advocate for it. I think it's very ignorant because a lot of young girls do think that way today. And trust me, I had the timeline in shambles. It got over 700 comments. I'm aware of how, this has affected today's day and time. And the thing about it is, like Denzel said, if it was somebody that we're going to take status out of it. We're going to just put monetary value on it. If it was somebody that she knew, because the neighborhood drug dealer, everybody know they got a lot of money. And everybody know they got status. So if it was the neighborhood drug dealer that had a lot of money, she still wouldn't question putting that child in his name.
That's fair.
And to go to piggyback on what's it called? Vivica saying, like, let me break that whole thing down and what I had an issue with. For one, we didn't hear his side, so we really don't know what was going on with the whole Death Row Record thing. That's my main part about it. And we can just be honest. Vivica Fox, now, even then, is a very attractive woman.
She looked confused in that interview, bro. Why she had that surprise eyebrow look, man?
She has a lot of Botox that has been done. You can see it. A lot of Jada Pinkett Smith action, a very stiff face, no reaction Jada, type thing.
But regardless of the fact, Vivica Fox was bad back in the day. Like, no hands down. So we can all say an attractive woman, especially in that role, in that setting, whether black or white, is gonna make it a little faster, a little farther than say a black man in that role. They're in the entertainment industry. That's what they were doing. That's what they are. He made what he could make and did what he can do. But what people don't understand, as somebody who has a master's already in entertainment business, when you sign them contracts, that's like signing over your life. So whoever owned Death Row now probably still own the rights to his music and everything else. And he has to, there's only so much he can do and work. And depending on the time, and especially during that time period, so we're talking about like 97 through
98, 2002.
Yeah, so we already know record labels were destroying artists' contracts and everything else. Like, hell, Joe Budden still talks about not owning the rights to Pump It Up, his biggest hit of all time. What De La Soul, there's other groups, there's plenty of people who were big at our time period when we were kids that don't own the rights to the music. I just found out that Puffy doesn't own the rights to Missing You with Biggie because he didn't clear the song. Sting owned the rights to that song and gets paid, I think, over $700,000 for that song.
I mean, he sampled the song. He should have cleared it.
I mean, yeah, you're right. But if for something as simple as not clearing a song gives him that much, think about somebody who signs a contract with a record label. Let's go.
You should have read the contract, bro. That's on you.
I mean,
at the end of the day, that's on you. You have to take the initiative, man.
that you can say that's on you, but if you 18, 19, we'll say 2021. You from Jacksonville, I'm from New York, Derek is from Baltimore.
Or getting out myself.
Paris is from like the Arkansas area. If somebody was offering you a contract at between the ages of 16 to 21.
I was never impressionable as a child, so we can omit me.
But
I always read everything.
But I mean, regardless, somebody offering you a contract of 200,000, 500,000, whatever, your average child that's growing up in just a single parent home is what they're gonna do. They're kids. You can say what you want, but you're a pretty kid at 21. You're a kid.
Yeah, but as you said, single parent. The first thing that would have happened, my parents would have read through that front to back, and then got back to me.
My daddy would have went and bought a lawyer so fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not good examples for that, dude. You talk about inner city youth kids. Yeah, I can understand.
We wouldn't have sold like our masters like that. We wouldn't have.
Of course not. But I'm from Lion King, still making 100,000.
I was just about to bring him up. Jason Mitchell.
His parents looked through it.
But that's what I'm saying. But I think he's trying to say see it through the eyes of your average.
Yeah, you're talking about an average inner city one single parent house.
Inner city is just people who don't know better. You got to think of the generation before us. Because 9 times the gentleman was black. Let's look at Vivica Fox generation. Vivica Fox was born probably Generation X, late baby boom, Generation X. The generation before her was pretty much illiterate.
I wouldn't go that far.
That's the silent gen. Baby boom was silent generation or close to illiterate. They at least contract.
Vivica Fox is over 60. So he's not far from what he's saying. I would give her 65 at the oldest age.
I think she's 55, ain't she?
We just look it up. We just fucking look it up. It's hard. It ain't that hard. We all sit on computers.
Yeah, she's 56. So I looked it up previously. So the largest rate in literacy in America. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying the largest rate of increase in literacy in African Americans occurred in the 20s. So they were not illiterate at that point. Individuals at Motown Record had record contracts in which they still had the masters to it. I don't take that as.
But we talking about Death Row Records.
Okay. And
we talking about somebody who probably focused or hung around LA. We talking about gangland. That is gangland. From somebody who grew up from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s.
But the dude was 34 years old at this time. So you said at 34 he didn't know to sign a proper contract?
We're just assuming. I mean, at 34 he might have signed a proper contract. I'm still just assuming he might have known.
My bad. My fault.
It's still a binding contract. We got to remember, Death Row during that time period was nuclear. You had Snoop, you had Pac. Before then, you had Dre, you had M.
They were the biggest record label booming at that time.
Exactly. You had Suge. Suge didn't even have an album and was popping. And then you guys think of where it transcended from. It transcended from Cube. It transcended from Eazy-E. Like signing with them was pretty much, you thought you was even if you was a one-hit wonder, you was gonna make it. Or they was like, and even we know how rap labels went back then. Even if you wasn't on, you was always gonna travel with the man that was on. Nobody foresaw the Pac's death except Pac. Nobody saw the downfall of Death Row until Dre left. Nobody saw those things. So if you signed with these people and all this other stuff, there's nothing you can do about it. He made the right decision, at least with the label he signed with. But
the timelines don't matter.
Have the motivation. It's an entertainment issue. As somebody who's done the work, like we know, you don't know Paris, but I've been working on this word of mouth thing since 2014. I took it took me a year, 2 years just to develop the logo.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but the timelines just don't match up. Tupac died in 1996. Vivica was
but you still
married from 1998 to 2002. What is his job? His job should have been affected before then, so the marriage shouldn't have been based on that.
The entertainment industry don't work like that. You can be signed in 97 or 96, but the work to make an album and you got to think of the time period to make an album. It's not everything's not entertaining. To make an album and all that other stuff,
Yeah, no.
And everybody knows an artist's value increases, the record label company increases, and they ride a wave after that artist passed. It's never been a secret. But I can say I don't feel, I feel where Fahim coming from, I do agree with him as far as him being 34 and him not being able to get up on his feet and sustain that. Like, she mentioned it, even though we don't get to see his side of it. Like, it's honestly, I'm gonna say it, and y'all may agree, you may disagree, but as a Black man in America, even with all your adversities, you have no excuse to not have no money.
We don't know if he didn't have no money. We just don't know. We don't know that he didn't have any money. He may not.
To the point where she was financially responsible for everything.
But you got to think, we ain't talking about your average Joe. We talking about entertainers. That's a whole
absolutely. But at that point, my thing is, here's the thing about being married and being with people, especially in the entertainment industry. It's small. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody attains a certain lifestyle. Everybody has certain status, to the point where even by affiliation, you can walk into Louis Vuitton or Gucci, and if you're affiliated with a certain person, they're going to drop everything to come and help assist you off of just name alone. Now, with that being said, if everybody has a, affiliation and a certain lifestyle and certain status quo, you at some point are maintaining a certain lifestyle. So even if he signed a contract that had a certain amount of money, even if he wasn't able to put out an album or, reap any revenue from that advance and having to pay it back, she still should have never been fully responsible for every single financial portion that they had.
But why didn't she ever she had her own career? Why didn't she ever help him get on, or at least manage through?
Why would she have to do that if they're in the same circle?
Because she's the hot one.
If they're married, my name automatically is attached to you. She said it herself. It was the paparazzi there. Vogue was there. It hit every blog. It hit every magazine. So people knew they were married. He was going to be a recording artist. That has no leverage, because even at that point, Vivica was pretty hot back in 2000, 2001. She was one of the best actresses out there.
He was.
So you can't take that from her.
Mm-hmm.
He was very, very prominent at that time. That was her era. That was around the time of Who Can Play That Game coming out. That was around that time. She got some of her biggest roles in that era.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't. Yeah. This is not her fault. This is not her fault financially. It's not. Now, it may be her fault as far as her leaving him and the marriage demising, but if you want to talk about why she didn't help him, if we get married and everybody knew we got married, because I am a big A-list celebrity and I am hitting every red carpet. I know every designer. I'm getting invited to every award show because I'm getting the A-list roles. It's no reason as to why people wouldn't have said, oh, you're Vivica's husband. Let me reach out and he was an artist. If you don't have the drive to push yourself for your own art, how can I do it?
And on that note,
playing
devil's advocate, that's it. Paris, thank you again for another week, shutting down opinions and whatnot. Anybody else got anything? Derek, you was kind of on mute this week, probably watching TV or whatnot.
Nah, I got some work on the side, but no, I mean, what I said was what I said. I get what Paris was saying. I get what Fahim was trying to do. I think at the end of the day, communication is key.
Absolutely,
communication is key.
And on that note, this is Word of Mouth. Peace.
Yeah.